The courtroom air hung thick with a metallic tang of fear, sweat, and polished wood, but it was Evelyn's voice that sliced through me like a rusted blade. She killed him. My boy, my only son, murdered for that filthy insurance payout. Her finger jabbed toward me, trembling not with grief but with a venom I'd only glimpsed in fleeting shadows before. I sat there, handcuffs biting into my wrists, the fluorescent lights buzzing like angry hornets overhead, and felt my world shatter into jagged shards. John's face flashed in my mind. His warm smile, the way he'd kiss my forehead after a long day, but now it twisted into accusation, mirroring his mother's glare. How had we come to this? Betrayal wasn't a word. It was a living thing, coiling in my gut, whispering that the woman who'd baked me pies and called me daughter had just condemned me to rot in hell. I replayed the morning of John's death in my head, a loop of torment that had started as grief and morphed into something darker. It was a crisp autumn day, leaves crunching underfoot like brittle bones as we argued in the driveway. John had been distant for weeks, his engineering job swallowing him whole, or so he said. "Sarah, it's just stress," he'd muttered, avoiding my eyes. But I knew better. The late nights, the hushed phone calls. That morning he'd snapped at me over breakfast, something trivial about the coffee being too weak, and stormed out to his car. I followed, pleading, "Talk to me, please." He revved the engine, tires squealing as he backed out too fast. The crunch of metal against the oak tree at the end of our drive echoed like a gunshot. Blood on the windshield, his body slumped. Gone in an instant. Accident, the paramedics said. But Evelyn, she saw murder. In the days after, as I wandered our empty house like a ghost, touching his clothes that still smelled of his cologne, sandalwood and faint motor oil, Evelyn's calls came like clockwork. At first, sympathetic. "How are you holding up, dear?" But soon laced with barbs. "John always said you were after his money." I dismissed it as her grief talking, the way she'd clung to him since his father died young, leaving her to raise him alone in that creaky Victorian house on the hill. She'd never fully accepted me, the city girl with no family ties, but we'd coexisted. Until the insurance adjuster mentioned the policy. $2 million beneficiary. Me. John's foresight, he'd called it, set up years ago. Evelyn's eyes had narrowed when she overheard, her lips pursing like she'd tasted poison. Now, in the interrogation room hours before the courtroom blow-up, the detective, a burly man named Reyes with coffee-stained teeth, leaned in, his breath hot and stale. "Mrs. Harlan, your mother-in-law says you tampered with the brakes. Claims she saw you in the garage the night before." My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat. Tampered. I'd been in the garage, yes, fumbling for holiday decorations, but brakes? "That's insane," I whispered, voice cracking. Inside, denial warred with rage. Evelyn, with her pearl necklace and Sunday church facade, spinning lies. But why? Resentment bubbled up, years of her subtle digs, like, "John could have done better," said with a saccharine smile. Heartbreak clawed at me. John was gone, and now this. I pictured her face, twisted in faux tears, and felt a spark ignite. Obsession, perhaps, or the first whisper of revenge. As they led me away, the clank of chains echoing off concrete walls, my mind raced through fantasies. What if I exposed her? Dug into her past, that murky history she'd glossed over. Widowed young, rumors of an affair, John's father falling down the stairs. No, I told myself, shaking my head. That's madness. Guilt flooded in. John wouldn't want this. But as I lay on the thin jail cot that night, the springs creaking like mocking laughter, doubt crept in. What if she was right? Not about murder, but about me being unworthy. Our marriage hadn't been perfect. Arguments over money, my job as a freelance writer barely scraping by. Had I driven him to that fatal distraction? The thought gnawed, a rodent in my skull, until resentment overpowered it. Evelyn had betrayed not just me, but John's memory. Cold resolve settled like frost on glass. If I got out, she'd pay. The preliminary hearing dragged on, lawyers' voices droning like distant thunder. Evelyn took the stand, her gray hair pinned neatly, eyes glistening with practiced sorrow. I loved Sarah like my own, she said, voice quivering. But after John died, she was so cold. And that insurance. John told me he regretted naming her beneficiary. Lies, every word a dagger. The courtroom murmured, jurors shifting in their seats, the wooden benches groaning under their weight. I wanted to scream, to lunge across the room and shake the truth from her. Instead, I sat frozen, nails digging into my palms, drawing blood that felt like a promise. Humiliation burned my cheeks. Reporters scribbled furiously, headlines already forming. Widow on trial for husband's murder. Afterward, in the holding cell, the fluorescent hummed the only company. I pieced it together. Evelyn's motive. Greed, plain and simple. John had confided once, after too much wine, that his mother was drowning in debt, gambling he'd suspected, from her casino trips masked as charity events. If I was convicted, the insurance might revert to her as next of kin. Betrayal twisted deeper. She'd played the long game, planting seeds of doubt even before his death. Be careful with her, John had warned lightly once, but I'd laughed it off. Now obsession took root. I imagined confronting her, watching her facade crack. But fear whispered back, what if I became the monster she painted? Days blurred into a haze of jail routines, the clang of meal trays, the sour stench of unwashed bodies. My lawyer, a harried woman named Carla with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense bob, visited. We have a lead, she said, sliding a folder across the scarred table. Security footage from your neighbor's camera. It might show the accident. Hope flickered, fragile as a candle flame, but resentment smothered it. Even if cleared, the damage was done. My name smeared, friends whispering. I nodded, but inside, plans formed like storm clouds. Revenge wouldn't be rash. It would be surgical, exposing her rot to the world. That night, as rain lashed the barred window, pattering like accusing fingers, moral conflict raged. Was I justified? John would hate this. His gentle soul always mediating between us. Guilt tugged. What if I forgave, moved on? But heartbreak won. Her accusation had killed something in me too. I whispered to the darkness. You'll regret this, Evelyn. The words tasted like ash, but they fueled me. The next hearing loomed, tension coiling tighter. Evelyn avoided my gaze as she entered, her heels clicking sharply on the tile, a queen in her domain. But I saw the crack, her hands twisting a tissue, knuckles white. Subtle foreshadowing, perhaps, of her own unraveling. As testimony resumed, my heart pounded, a war drum. Whatever the footage showed, it wouldn't end here. Betrayal demanded balance. Cleared. The word echoed in the courtroom like a distant explosion, but it brought no relief. Only a hollow echo where joy should have been. The judge's gavel cracked down, final as a coffin nail. Based on the security footage, charges dismissed. Murmurs rippled through the gallery, chairs scraping as people shifted, the air thick with disbelief. Evelyn's face drained of color, her pearl-clutching hand frozen mid-air. The footage, grainy but damning, showed John's car swerving wildly, no tampering evident. But it captured more. Evelyn, hours before, slipping into our garage under cover of night, her silhouette furtive against the motion lights. Not tampering with brakes, but rifling through John's toolbox, pocketing something small, a key? A document. The police were investigating further, Reyes said gruffly, but I knew. She'd been planting evidence, or worse, searching for the insurance papers to contest them. As they uncuffed me, the metal's cold bite lingering on my skin, fury surged like bile. She'd orchestrated this nightmare, turning my grief into a cage. Outside, the autumn wind whipped leaves into frenzied dances, mirroring my turmoil. Reporters swarmed, microphones thrusting like spears. How do you feel, Mrs. Harlan? I forced a smile, voice steady. Relieved. Justice prevails. But inside, obsession burned brighter. Revenge wasn't optional. It was oxygen. I drove home in John's old sedan, the one spared from the crash, tires humming on rain-slick roads. The house loomed, windows dark like accusing eyes. Inside, the air stale with disuse, I poured a glass of his favorite scotch, the amber liquid swirling like trapped fire. Sipping it, I let memories flood. Our wedding, Evelyn's toast laced with passive jabs. May you cherish him as I have. Heartbreak twisted. John had defended her always, blind to her manipulations. Now, with him gone, I saw clearly. Her love was possession, her grief a mask for avarice. Planning began in quiet moments. I rifled through drawers, the wood creaking softly, unearthing old letters. Evelyn's pleas to John for money, disguised as loans. Casino receipts tucked in envelopes. Debts mounting. Moral conflict gnawed. Expose her publicly. Ruin her socially. Or something darker. Doubt crept in. What if John had known, forgiven her? But resentment overpowered. Her accusation had stripped me bare, friends abandoning me like rats from a sinking ship. No, she'd feel that isolation. I started subtly. A call to her church group, anonymous. Did you know Evelyn Harlan's in debt? Gambling away her son's legacy. Whispers spread like wildfire. I imagined her at Sunday service, heads turning, murmurs behind hymnals. Then deeper. Hacking her email wasn't hard. A forgotten password hint from John. Inside, emails to lawyers scheming to challenge the insurance. Sarah's unstable, she must have caused the accident. Proof of her betrayal, cold and digital. Guilt flickered. John would be ashamed, but cold resolve hardened. This was justice, poetic and precise. Confrontation came on a stormy evening. Thunder rumbling like suppressed rage. I knocked on her door, the Victorian house groaning in the wind, porch light flickering. She answered, face paling. Sarah? What are you? I pushed past, the door slamming shut with a finality that echoed my intent. The parlor smelled of mothballs and faded lavender, knickknacks gleaming under dim lamps. Why, Evelyn? My voice low, trembling with layered fury. She backed away, hands fluttering. I was grieving. Mistaken. Liar. I pulled out printed emails, slapping them on the coffee table, glass rattling. Her eyes widened, denial cracking. You planted doubts, searched our garage. For what? Money. She sank into a chair, upholstery sighing, and for a moment vulnerability flashed. Tears genuine? John was all I had. After his father. The debts piled up. I thought you'd squander it. Heartbreak in her voice, but twisted by entitlement. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Dialogue hung heavy, tension thickening the air. You accused me of murder, I hissed, leaning in, smelling her fierce sweat. Ruined my life. She whispered. Forgive me for John's sake. But obsession blinded me. Forgiveness was weakness. I left with a warning. This isn't over. Days later, as snow dusted the ground like forgotten ashes, I executed the plan. An anonymous tip to the IRS. Her hidden accounts, tax evasion from casino wins. Police followed up on the footage, questioning her about trespassing, possible fraud. Her world crumbled. Friends distanced, church shunned her. I watched from afar, parked outside her house, headlights off as movers carted boxes. Foreclosure looming. But the twist came unbidden. A late-night call from Reyes. Mrs. Harlan, we enhanced the footage. Evelyn wasn't just searching. She tampered with something in the car. My blood ran cold. The small object. A brake line tool. Investigation revealed. John's accident wasn't mine, but hers. Subtle sabotage, meant perhaps to scare him into dependence, but fatal. Motive. Control the insurance through him alive or claim it if not. Shock hit like a wave, she'd killed her own son. Confronting her one last time in the empty house echoing with ghosts, she confessed through sobs. I didn't mean to. Just to disable it, make him need me. Heartbreak, guilt, rage collided in me. Revenge felt hollow. I'd become her mirror, manipulating from shadows. But as police led her away, cuffs clicking, poetic justice settled. Betrayed by her own greed, exposed by the footage she'd overlooked. In the end, sitting by John's grave, snowflakes melting on my cheeks like unshed tears, I whispered apologies. The pursuit had consumed me, leaving scars. Moral grayness lingered. Was my revenge righteous, or just another betrayal? The wind howled, carrying no answers, only the cold resolve of survival.